Public confidence in American institutions is deteriorating at a pace we haven't seen in decades. Across elections, courts, media, and government agencies, millions of citizens no longer believe the system operates with transparency, consistency, or equal enforcement. When public trust collapses, political stability weakens, and social unrest follows. That is the environment the country is now navigating. This map of the United States doesn't represent the states. It actually represents systems of influence. Each region reflects a major institutional power center that shapes national outcomes. These systems operate independently on paper, but in practice, they function as an interconnected network. At the center of this structure is the institution that ultimately determines who holds authority in the first place, and that's the judicial system. Courts and prosecutors determine which laws are enforced and which cases are going to proceed and which allegations are going to be dismissed. When legal institutions function impartially, they protect civil society. When enforcement becomes inconsistent or politicized, public confidence erodes very quickly. The concentration of prosecutorial discretion and judicial authority makes the sector the most influential component of the entire system. As you look at this map, I want you to think about some things. So under this judicial systems and prosecutorial power heading, under domestic things that are related to this is the federal and state courts, the prosecutor's offices, there's attorney general's offices in every single state, and there's also U.S. attorneys general, judicial appointment bodies, and bar associations. Now, globally, those domestic offices and entities, departments, whatever you want to call them, are influenced by global international legal NGOs, transnational law firms, foreign arbitration bodies, and global judicial training programs. That's what's actually influencing the judicial system in this country. I put these in the order of what I thought was probably the most influential in the country. So the next category would be the election administration and voting infrastructure, which is totally rigged and messed up. The domestic side is state election offices, private voting machine vendors like Dominion, Smartmatic, things like that. And then there's also ballot processing contractors, election certification boards, and data management firms. Those are also under that voting system. So it's not like it's just your county elections office is holding on to all these votes. These are people that are involved in this whole entire voting infrastructure. And globally, those are absolutely 100% provable, influenced by these global influences and external companies, international election technology firms. And what's interesting is they have international right in the names of some of these firms. Foreign cybersecurity vendors, I believe some of those might be even in, if I remember correctly, Italy. So that's a problem. International data analytics companies and global cloud infrastructure providers. Total ability to hack and do whatever it is you want to do with anybody's election, no matter where they are, from local all the way up to federal. So that's why I put it in that particular category, because it is and always has been a huge problem, but people just don't want to acknowledge it for some reason. What's happening right now is that entire system is being exposed, and I hope people will pay attention, because that's these two things, the judicial system and the voting infrastructure, are the biggest issues that we have right now. Everything else is just noise. Something that's being talked about right now, right today, huge issue, is the financial system and banking networks, which silver took a huge dive. Hopefully it will come back up. And also Bitcoin took a huge dive. So that's kind of interesting. Under this financial system, on the domestic side, there's major commercial banks. I believe one just totally collapsed. I want to say on Friday, but it could have been Saturday. And that's not That's probably just the tip of the iceberg there of what's going to happen. The Federal Reserve System is under there, investment banks, hedge funds, payment processors, those are all part of the domestic financial system and banking networks. And then those are influenced by the Global International Monetary Fund. Look into that. The World Bank, Bank for International Settlements, global clearinghouses, and offshore banking centers. So if you think that we're all on our own, that isn't true. Now, pushing the propaganda is the media and information control. Domestically, we have television networks, digital news platforms, social media companies that say they're platforms, but they're actually propaganda machines used as really they're producing information rather than being just a platform. So then we have advertising agencies, which influence things, and fact-checking organizations, which is so ridiculous because they're liberal. Let me see if the fact-checkers are fact-checking them on their own selves. Of course they are. And then there's a global influence there, which is an international media conglomerate, of course, global content distributors, foreign state-funded media, international PR firms, and global tech moderation teams. These are things that they don't want you to know. They're right there in front of your face, but people usually don't pay attention to that because they're listening to the noise, like the riots in LA and, all the bombardment of what's going on. And the media is absolutely designed to distract you from what is most important. It's not news, it's entertainment. Get that straight. Recently, we've had popping up its ugly head, and I say recently, even though it's been for decades and decades, intelligence, surveillance, and data systems. Domestically, there's the federal intelligence agencies. How intelligent they are still remains to be seen. Law enforcement databases, which obviously these rioters have been able to tap into. There's fusion centers, surveillance contractors, and data brokers. And one of those surveillance contractors is that Flock system, which all of you should be against that. It's not about traffic tickets. It's totally about data collection. Don't be fooled. They're using security and safety as a reason to install data systems for surveillance. It's to gather intelligence on you. And globally, the influence is Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. There are Five Eyes. I don't want to go into that right now. International cyber firms, global surveillance vendors like Palantir, foreign data storage providers, and transnational security contractors. All of these little subcategories that are global, you guys should be looking into that stuff. Then, of course, there's the pharmaceutical and health policy sector. We all saw that raise its ugly head during the COVID, I don't know what you want to call it, loyalty ritual test is what it really was. In the domestic side, we have major pharmaceutical corporations which have had their medicines, all this stuff, located outside of this country. People didn't know that. Federal health agencies, medical regulators, hospital networks, and insurance providers. And believe me, that insurance stuff right there is one of the hugest scandals that's going to probably erupt here pretty soon since it's being uncovered in Minnesota. And you're going to find it in every single state. Every single state. And globally, that is being influenced by the World Health Organization, which surprisingly, their initials are WHO, like I want to say, who the hell are you? International health NGOs, global vaccine alliances, like Bill Gates and all of that stuff. We're going to vaccinate every single person in the entire world with who knows what. Multinational drug manufacturers. Thank God that Donald Trump is bringing it back to the United States of America. Just it remains to be seen how many of the on-the-market drugs are manufactured in the United States. International research consortia. Not good. Not good to be influenced by international people, especially when they're the enemies of the United States of America. China. Then there is the defense, security, and war contracting. Now, this is where they make a lot of money. is in the War Department. Banks do anyway. Domestically, we have defense contractors. There's a ton of those. Pentagon procurement offices, private military companies. And if you don't know what that is, it's kind of interesting what happened in Benghazi. Go check that out. Weapons manufacturers and logistics firms. These on our soil are globally influenced. They have global influencers. NATO, of course, NATO partners. The World Economic Forum, I think, is one of the ones that are influencing here. Now, you can say that about banking and all kinds of things as far as the World Economic Forum, which I think is a dangerous thing to be telling us what to do. Thank God Donald Trump went over there and told them we're not listening to any of you because we shouldn't be. We have international arms dealers, foreign defense ministries, global security alliances, and multinational logistics providers when it comes to defense, security, and war contracting. Not good, not good at all. Now, what fun would all this be if we left out the politicians? So I have here political funding and lobbying networks. Now, these things that I'm telling you about are like the 9 biggest things. Domestically, we have political action committees, which are called PACs. We have major donors, and those major donors aren't necessarily in the United States of America, I hope you know. They come from all kinds of foreign places, which is why they have these nonprofits funded by foreigners that can funnel money into political campaigns. And Act Blue is one of the biggest offenders as far as collecting money for the Democratic Party. And I say Democratic Party because that's what the Democratic Party uses to fund their campaigns. And boy, the corruption, we're just at the tip of the iceberg on that one. There's lobbying firms, think tanks, and advocacy groups. That's all just within the United States. Globally, there's international foundations, foreign investment funds, global policy institutes. It's like, I don't care what you're doing. I personally don't care what you're doing in another country until it starts affecting me. Then I have a problem. Transnational advocacy networks, multinational corporate donors. And of course, we have technology platforms and digital infrastructure, the things that we use every single day. Domestically, we have big tech companies, cloud service providers. You know, I don't really like cloud service, but I get why we have to use it sometimes. I just don't like it, and especially don't like it when it comes to our voting system. Data analytics firms, AI development labs, telecommunications companies. Those are the biggies in the domestic area. Then globally, we have international cloud networks. Why would we even want to use that? I have no idea. Foreign semiconductor suppliers. We already know that about Taiwan and other countries. Global research labs. Wuhan comes to mind. International standards bodies, which are supposed to be telling us what the international standards are. Great, nice for you. I don't really care. I care about the United States of America. Multinational tech alliances, which we do have. And those are basically the 9 huge corruption bodies, which I call the global organized crime syndicate. I've been trying to tell you this for a very long time, that we have like a power struggle here in the United States of America. Together, the courts and elections form the foundation of governments. When either side loses credibility, the entire system becomes vulnerable to manipulation, and it's already corrupt as it stands. This first operational layer beneath institutional authority is leverage. Then there's financial pressure, personal vulnerabilities, reputational risk, and undisclosed relationships, which create the influence channels that bypass formal oversight. Individuals placed under this if there's enough pressure, they're going to comply with overt coercion. History demonstrates that compromised officials rarely require direct instruction to conform. All they need is pressure. That pressure can either be actual real pressure or it can be insinuated pressure. Layer 2 is money and influence. The second layer we have here is the financial control. Political campaigns, policy initiatives, media narratives, and regulatory priorities depend on the funding. So there's donor foundations, donors, and there's foundations, corporations, and lobbying organizations that shape access to this power. Now, that's perceived power, obviously, because they don't have any power unless you give it to them. When financial networks dominate political systems, their voter influence diminishes and decision-making migrates behind closed doors, which happens all the time. So when you look at Congress and you think that thing that you're watching isn't staged, it's absolutely staged. It's who's going to be the bad guy today. Then there's this third layer, which is bureaucracy and lawfare. It consists of administrative and enforcement institutions. So there's regulatory agencies, investigative bodies, prosecutorial offices, and they determine how laws are applied. So just because a politician might put through a bill and it becomes a law or whatever, it's these other people that are unelected that try to figure out if it's going to be applied and how it's going to be applied. It's usually totally selective enforcement. It can be delayed by investigations and regulatory capture, which undermines the institutional credibility, of course. Once citizens perceive that enforcement is unequal, respect for legal authority deteriorates, which is happening right now. Nobody has any faith in the institutions that are there if you've experienced them at all. If you haven't experienced them, you might think we're all making this up, but there's so many people out there who've experienced this that if you're not listening to these stories, there's no way that multiple stories that are the same could be generated constantly. Okay, they're going to break down at some point. Now, what cases such as the Jeffrey Epstein case illustrate is how leverage networks can function within an elite environment. The significance here lies not in one individual, but in how confirmation of systemic failures damages confidence in institutional oversight, which we're seeing right now because this Epstein stuff has gone way past where it really is, to me, a valuable document because it's been through so many hands. And the Democrats, at first, they were crying, give me this stuff. I want to see all the Epstein files. But now, because the Epstein files include them, they're focused on the riots that really shouldn't even be happening at all, because under the Democrats, as we found out, if you go back to the research, the Democrats were the ones who were supporting ICE and have been supporting ICE this whole entire time. This is all about distraction from their fraud. Now, if you look at this power puzzle and the map, and you put this stuff all together, and these layers are viewed together, the judicial authority, the election administration, leverage networks, financial influence, and bureaucratic enforcement, there's a coherent structure that emerges. Each component reinforces the other. Each operates with very limited transparency. Each contributes to the concentration of institutional power beyond direct public oversight. This structural imbalance has consequences like declining trust, which contributes to social unrest. We can see that there's political radicalization and institutional paralysis. Communities experience increased tension when these things are allowed to dominate. Public safety is deteriorating, and they're doing it on purpose so that you will rely on the government. The economic structure and infrastructure systems become more fragile as the governance weakens. But the government, remember, is a reflection of the church. Modern society actually depends on interconnected systems through banking, energy distribution, transportation, logistics, and communications. We should all know that. These systems require a stable governance and public confidence. Without that, it's just dysfunctional. Increases the vulnerability across every single sector, which you should have noticed that when the shipping crisis was happening. And I believe that was under Biden, if I remember correctly. The pattern is very consistent. Reduced transparency produces distrust, and distrust produces division. And of course, division produces instability. That's just should be obvious. This sequence has repeated throughout history in societies that failed to maintain institutional accountability. If we want to preserve the constitutional republic, we do not have a democracy, no matter how many people want to say it. We have a constitutional republic. And if we want to preserve that, we have to have transparent elections. We have to have independent courts. We have to have equal enforcement of the laws and informed civic participation. We can't continue to uphold people who are dumb or encourage them to even vote. I don't think dumb people should be voting. It's their constitutional right to vote, and it's their right to vote, but I don't think we should be encouraging it, that's for sure. When the safeguards weaken, as far as the Constitution is concerned, they gradually degrade the entire society. The institutional corruption has been woven so tightly into the fabric of every aspect of our society. I'm not sure we're going to be able to come back from this. That's why we have a constitution which guarantees our ability to restructure a government that works for the people, not oppresses them into submission. For the America Matters radio show, I'm April Lejeune, and I thank you for joining me. Please keep yourself and your family safe.